Hi everyone, my name is Shauna, in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be filming my March reading wrap-up. I'm very sorry if this video is going up late. The start of my April is really busy. I've been very stressed and overwhelmed, so I may just wait until all my busy stuff is done before I upload this video, which means that you may be getting this video in the middle of April. I read 6 books in the month of March, which isn't as much as I was hoping to read. I had a lot more books that I was planning on reading, but so first of all, my March was really stressful and I was having some personal stuff going on in my life that made it sometimes hard for me to read. And then the other issue is that I'm a mood reader, and in the middle of this month, my brain was like, you are not going to read what you were planning on reading anymore. And I was like, you know what, I have to follow what my mood says or else I'm going to get into a reading slump. The good news about my March is that my average star rating is really high for March. I only had one book that I didn't like, and all the other ones were 4 stars or higher. That is incredible. I very rarely have such a high star rating, so it means that I had a good reading month in terms of enjoyment. So enjoyment should matter more than the number of books read, even though my brain often wants to read more books and have lower star rating. I don't know. Anyways, my average star rating is 4.12 stars, so that's really good. The first book that I read this month was The Witch and the Vampire, which is by Francesca Flores. This is the one that I didn't like, so it's my least favorite book for the month, unfortunately. So The Witch and the Vampire is pitched as a sapphic Rapunzel retelling, but if I'm being quite honest, it's more a sapphic, like, Tangled retelling, because it doesn't follow like the original plot of the story in any form, because there's obviously multiple different versions of different fairy tales. It doesn't follow any of the original fairy tales. It follows the Tangled Disney movie plotline, but it's like a little more graphic and gory because it is about a witch who is planning on killing a vampire who used to be her best friend. The vampire was trapped up in her tower and she gets out and escapes, and Ava and Kay, they run into each other. They are the 2 main characters and they are going on a journey together, but at the end of this journey, Kay is planning on killing Ava. Because in this world, Kay is a like vampire hunter essentially, and she's a witch, so she has like witch powers, and she's convinced that Ava killed her mother. So she's planning on killing Ava, and Ava's like a little oblivious, you know? So I had a lot of issues with this book. I think the only thing that I really liked about this book though was just like, I really liked the idea. I really liked the thought put into the world building, but other than that, I didn't like it. So one of my issues with this book is that I found both of the main characters to be extremely unlikable. Ava is way too naive, and that made her unlikable to me. So Ava, the vampire, was turned into a vampire and trapped in the tower at the age of 16, and she gets out at the age of 18. She has only been in the tower for 2 years, and she gets out and acts so naive and childlike, and I'm like, girl, you are basically an adult now. You had 16 years of living in a vampire infested world before you were locked in the tower, so you shouldn't be all naive. Oh my gosh, I'm so innocent, I don't know anything about the world. No girl, you were freaking alive for 16 years in a vampire infested world. I'm so mad about that. I'm so mad about that. Now, Kay, I just found her like extremely mean, and I get that they wanted to have like an enemies to lovers storyline, but Kay was so mean and unlikable, and I just felt like she went really overboard in a lot of her hatred of Ava. And then since I didn't like Ava and Kay, I didn't like the romance, so that sucked. And then my other issue with this book is the pacing. It was so slow. I kept almost falling asleep. It was so hard to force myself to finish the book. So The Witch and the Vampire was 2 stars for me. I'm giving it 2 stars just because I really liked the idea behind the story, and I felt like the idea was really interesting and creative. I just think that like everything about this story besides the idea behind the story was not great. I think people will like this book, but don't go into it with super high expectations just based off of the synopsis, because that's what I did and I was really disappointed. I feel like the synopsis was a little bit of like clickbait in some sense, like it doesn't live up to what the book is described as. And then I finished a duology in the month of March, and I finished the Set Fire to the Gods duology. This is the second book, Rise Up from the Embers. It is by Sarah Rash and Kristen Simmons. In the Set Fire to the Gods world, there is 6 gods, and 4 of these gods fight over different things. And so to fight over like land and power and stuff, they have gladiator battles where they send some of their people into these gladiator battles, and these people that they send into the battles have powers. So Ash right here is a fire divine, so she can control fire. Matic right here, I'm not going to tell you what his power is, but he's supposed to be earth divine. So he doesn't have earth divine powers, so he thinks he isn't special. He thinks he isn't divine. He thinks he's undivine. But there are some things about him that you realize early on hint that he may have different powers. And this is obviously a romance, so it's sort of like if the Hunger Games met Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I liked this book for the introduction of new gods. In the first book, you're mainly just focusing on two gods. You're focusing on the fire god and the earth god. This one introduces some other gods, and I found the other gods to be really interesting and really fun to read about. Like, obviously some of them are really terrible. I mean, gods can easily abuse their power in fantasy world and stuff, but I found them to be really, really fun to read about and to see what they were going to do next. I thought that the battle scenes were really done well in here. They were really descriptive, and they were also fast-paced, and they're really creative. Like, none of these battles felt unoriginal. They all felt very unique and unlike any battle that I've ever read in a book before. And then I really like the epilogue of this book. I felt like the epilogue was a great conclusion to this duology, and I really want a spin-off series following Elias, who is my favorite character, and who the epilogue hints at something that I'm like, hey, we need a spin-off series, because what in the world? You can't just like throw that in there in the epilogue. Now for my criticisms, I'm gonna butcher her name. I feel like Aera, A-E-R-A. She is the air divine. There's like a really uncomfortable scene with her in this that made me so uncomfortable. It made me want to like put the book down. It was so uncomfortable. Like, I don't even know how to word it. I guess I could say it's a questionable age gap that's like sort of bordering on cheating, but there's like a reason for it. I was like, no, do we need this scene? And then my other issue with this book is that the pacing was just a little funky. There was like some parts where it felt way too fast, other parts where it felt way too slow, and it just felt like, I don't know, you just gotta like fix the pacing a little bit, and this would have been a 5-star read. So I just gave this 4 stars. I wasn't gonna take off a star because of the Aera thing. I don't know how to say her name. A-E-R-A. Era, I don't know. But I'm taking off a star because of the pacing, so it's a 4-star read for me. But I do highly recommend this duology because it is really enjoyable, and I feel like not enough people have read it, and I think it's just fantastic. And Kristen Simmons and Sarah Rash are both incredible authors, and I can't wait to read more by them. This was my 8th Kristen Simmons book, but this was only my 2nd Sarah Rash book, so I need to read more of Sarah's books. And then I read The Shadows Between Us, and The Shadows Between Us is a very hyped book, so I was really scared going into it because me and hyped books don't always get along. The Shadows Between Us is a fantasy romance, and it is a fantasy romance between this girl Alessandra and the Shadow King. And so Alessandra is trying to woo the Shadow King, and then she wants to kill him and take his power. The Shadow King, meanwhile, is trying to figure out who killed his parents. I would say that it's like a very like angsty story. Like, it's not exactly steamy. There isn't really that many steamy things, but like there's definitely lots of like romantic tension in there. So if you're into that, like, this might be the book for you. I really liked how Alessandra had such great sex positivity in this book. Like, I know it's weird for me to be saying, but like just her thoughts on sex and how she wanted to make sex like perceived differently in her world was just really great. And I loved the pacing in this story. Even in scenes where there was stuff that wasn't super interesting that was happening, the pacing made it so it still flew by and was really enjoyable. Now, there were several points throughout the story though where I thought I was going to rate it 1 star because there is some very cringy writing in here. Like, I'll tell you a couple cringy quotes right now because I wrote them down in my review. There is a scene in which the Shadow King is described in a way that is supposed to be attractive, and it says, his answering smile is that of a predator, masculine pride at its finest. No! Don't use that in a positive way to describe a character. Oh my lord. Okay, and then there's also a scene where Alessandra is freaking in a room by herself, and the book goes, I'm not a trollop, I announced to the empty room. I'm a sexually empowered woman and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's a good meaning behind it. Like, yeah, be a good sexually empowered woman. But why are you just like saying that to an empty room when you were in there alone? And then like, why would you even say that out loud in the first place? Like, I get thinking that, but saying it out loud, like, no. And those aren't even the worst. Like, those are just two of them that are so cringy. And so like, I just would get really into the story and then there'd just be a cringy line thrown in there and I'd be, crap. I also didn't really like Alessandra, but like, I can like books that have unlikable characters as the main characters, and this was one of those cases where I just loved everything else about the book besides Alessandra and the cringy lines. So I found this book really enjoyable and I could like overlook that. Like Twilight, for example. Like, I hate Bella and Edward, but I love Twilight. So this is the case with The Shadows Between Us, where I don't like Alessandra, but I did like this book. Oh, I don't think I mentioned it too. This book is by Trisha Levenseller. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars because I really enjoyed it. Did I have issues with it? Yes, but it was really entertaining. So even though I had issues with it, like, I still enjoyed my time with the book. This is also on Kindle Unlimited if anyone is interested. That's where I read it. So yeah, technically sort of read it for free, sort of didn't read it for free. I try and read at least one Kindle Unlimited book a month, in case you can't tell, and The Shadows Between Us was my pick for March. And then my mood reading came into play. So I read Demon Slayer Volume 1 and I read Demon Slayer Volume 2, and I gave both of them the same rating. I gave both of them 5 stars. I'm gonna probably butcher the author's name, Koyoharu Gotog. I probably butchered their name, but I love Demon Slayer. I have been enjoying Demon Slayer since season 1 of the anime. One of my friends got me into it and I became obsessed with it, and I just love Demon Slayer so much, and I figured it was time for me to pick up the manga. Demon Slayer follows this brother and sister duo. So Tanjiro comes home and he finds that all of his family has been killed by a demon. But his sister Nezuko, he finds, has been turned into a demon. So he decides that he's gonna go on an adventure and save her. So I love this story. Is it intense at times? Yeah, but it's so good, and I can't even like fully put into thoughts my like feelings for the series just because I love it so much, and I feel like a lot of me loving this series is me just going, it's so amazing, it's so perfect. Now, you don't really see my favorite characters very much in these 2 volumes, but that's okay. I love Tanjiro, I love Nezuko, but more than them, I love Zenitsu and I love Lord Tengen. So yeah, I give those both 5 stars, obviously. Love them so much. I have the next 2 volumes on my shelf and I need to pick this up soon and read them. And then I had a reread, and I am trying to reread the Harry Potter series every single year, so this was time to start my reread of the Harry Potter series. So I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I had to buy a new copy because I didn't have my original copy, like my original American hardback copy of Sorcerer's Stone, so I had to buy a new one. Yeah, I reread it. It's perfect. It's amazing. So each year, in case you don't know, I am using Flagets and I am marking some characters. They are side characters, and I'm hoping to at some point soon, because I read the whole entire series last year and marked 5 different characters. I'm hoping to at some point soon start, I guess, a character study is what you might call it, where I tell you each scene where a certain minor character appears, and I may give you like some context on what like my thoughts are in the situation, what I think the scenes mean, and stuff like that. I just thought that'd be fun, and I'm trying to take my Harry Potter knowledge like the next level by really paying attention to these side characters. So for my reread this year, I am marking Michael Connor, Hannah Abbott, Pansy Parkinson, Gabrielle Delacour, and Poppy Pomfrey, Madame Pomfrey. So in this one, we have Pansy, Hannah, and Poppy. And we don't have Michael or Gabrielle, which makes sense because Gabrielle is really only in the 4th book and the 7th book, and I think there's a mention of her in the 6th book. Gabrielle's my favorite character, in case you don't know, even though she's so freaking obscure. And then Michael Corner is only really mentioned in reference to like Jenny dating him, so that's why he's not in here. I also want to share really quickly my favorite like little random scene in here. I love the scene where it mentions that Harry's hair is out of control, and to like emphasize how out of control it is, It says that at one point Petunia was getting so annoyed with how messy his hair was that she cut off all of his hair except for his bangs to cover his lightning bolt scar. But then the next day Harry woke up and all his hair had grown back and Aunt Petunia was mad at him. I'm just paraphrasing there, but that's like so obscure and I love it so much. I also love the potion scene in here, like the potions riddle. I love Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, so I gave it 5 stars. I give every single Harry Potter like installment in the series 5 stars because I love them all so much. I believe this was like my 6th time rereading this one. And then there was gonna be a 7th book that I was gonna finish in March, and I'm so mad at myself. I finished it at 12:08 a.m. on April 1st. So, you know, it is what it is. I was like, I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it in March, this 7th book that I was in the middle of reading. And then I checked the clock after I finished reading it and I was like, oh my freaking gosh. There was like 2% of the book that I needed to read quicker and I didn't. So yeah, I guess that gave me a little head start on the number of books I read in April. But yeah, that was annoying. I've never had that happen before where I finished it at like past midnight but before 1 a.m. on the first day of a new month. So that was interesting. So those were all the 6 books that I read this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I'm using my new phone in case you can't tell, so I'm really hoping that the audio is better on here. I think I have like one video that I still need to edit and upload that was taken on my old phone. So you will have one video where the audio is not as great from that one that it took on my old phone, but from here on out, you are getting stuff from my new phone and from my camera because I finally charged my camera. I am CEO of forgetting how to charge my camera and just simply not using my camera for months at a time because I forget. Anyways, I'm a mess. I need to go. I am heading to Seattle tomorrow. Well, as a filming this video, I'm heading to Seattle tomorrow. Probably upload this after I'm already in Seattle. So yeah, I have a lot of things I need to do. I need to pack. I need to finish up some last minute cosplay stuff. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. I hope all of you are having a great start to your April. I hope your April is a fantastic month for you. I hope you get lots of good reading done. And until next time, everyone, goodbye.